Pilates. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, licensed presenters, the Core Core, and anyone interested in surviving as a Pilates instructor or student or a human being. Okay? Something like this, right? So, unless you're flying around in space on the shuttle or the space station, somewhere on this planet you are, or flying around. One rotation, one day. Today's June 16th, so in 4 days, it will be 6/20/2020. 6 June 20th 2020, the year 2020. So the solstice is the occasion for Michael Miller Pilates to hold its convention, and a lot of that has to do with the title of my email today that went out to my group about non-local and superluminal. Christy, you out there? You hanging with me? Non-local and superluminal are the fancy names that come out of that book I referenced, Quantum Reality by Nick Herbert. And those words are used, as far as I can tell, as a layman reading at the end of the book. I did read the whole book, but at the end, buy it electronically and search for the root of the word observe, right? And just meaning OBSERV, so you get the variations of the word observe. But search through that. And what I took out of what I read there was that observing is the whole crux of the issue. It's the mystery because it all comes down to how do you measure and what are you measuring and to what extent observing. And some of the data from their experiments, as far as I can tell, they're saying that observing displays characteristics of being non-local and superluminal. Now, the words non-local means if it's not local, if it's not right here, then it's somewhere far away. It's not local. It's other than local, right? And that you're connected to something that's not right here, say far away, right? And that connection is, so non-local, is superluminal, meaning super, and luminal is another word for light, like luminosity, luminal. Superluminal, meaning faster than light. And so this connection to far away is a connection that it exists faster than light. And it's not that there's understanding in this as much as there is mystery and questioning about what makes up our experience and our reality, and that observing is at the heart of, to me, what we understand about ourselves and the world that we're in, right? So the characteristics of observing and the Michael Miller Pilates point of view that in body, mind, and spirit, it's being, thinking, and observing, and that thinking is prefrontal cortex, And observing is amygdala, hippocampal areas of the brain, feeding information into the thinking, the three parts just within the human body. Two of them, like between your ears, they have to be coordinated to get to the experience that you're after. Or at least the experience that you're after in pursuit of the choreography. Because it's in the performance of the choreography, in the spirit of performing it, that you get the best out of your effort. So did that explain that a little better? Where did I have notes on that? Let me move on. Number 2. I've got 3 things on my list today. Number 2 is the core, and number 3 is thinking is part of it, but not all of it. Okay? So what I do there, I took a pass of the carousel going by, a preview of the information I have yet to cover. And the second thing was the core. And I just can't believe that most of the world is ignorant of the fact that the core is a literal grip at the hips. It's an involution of muscularity, effort, that makes a rotation, or that in making the rotation, in making the grip, defines the axis. So in making the grip, the rotation defines the axis. When it comes to the passage of the Earth, right? It's in orbit. It's in a rotation. The Earth itself is in rotation. The Earth has an attitude in space. Here it is, it's on this path, and it's in an attitude, rotating around an axis, and that attitude changes on solstices. Coming up in 4 days is the summer solstice of June 6th, the 6th month, the 20th day in the year 2020. This is all a big deal because non-local and superluminal are characteristics of observing. And it's in the engagement of observing that you connect to the universe faster than light. So it seems, or at least that's what I share with you from the MMP point of view. You know, contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. The idea of Pilates, of MMP, the idea of contrology is uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. In my learning of Pilates, there was emphasis on the core, and that you controlled the core and worked out from there. Right? It's in MMP that I give you the core is a grip, a physical grip of muscle, bone, fascia. All of it is meant to empower rotational dynamic. Just like this and the rotational dynamic it gets from being able to control rotation around an axis. So the core, really, you got to get to the core and establish a recognition of what you're doing when you control your core, in that you make an involution of grip that you go in closer to all the time and seek to be able to draw further away from the other axis. Maybe press away from would be a better way of saying that. So once you get to, or you're willing to say, okay, the core is a grip at the hips and it makes rotation and la-da-da, then at least you get to one point. This point of the end of the axis, the end point here at the hips. And that's the core that you have to establish or want to establish control of, because everything else comes off of and out from there. Like the shoulders, first and foremost, strongest. The whole tube of the trunk is able to accomplish eccentric lengthening by the fact that there's rotational dynamic going on between the hips and the shoulders. In the very same dynamic between the ears and the shoulders. And this one's so much easier to feel and to demonstrate and to reach into, that finding a connection between ears and shoulders leads you into seeking credible sensation of having your ribs connect to your hips in a rotational dynamic, in an oppositional rotation. Now I'm tripping over my definition and having it muddled. Core new tension is oppositional rotation between axes. And in making that oppositional rotation, it expresses or stretches out or presses out the axes away from one another. Core new tension is inherently eccentric in its expression. And you got to get to the core before you can ever get to realize, well, I just made the point though that ears to shoulders is a good avenue into helping a person find the flexibility and the strength and the connection to discover the transverse abdominis and its role that it plays in connecting the shoulders to the hips. Number 3. So in Joe's definition, contrology is complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. He lists 3 things that are coordinated, right? And you and I can make whatever we want of them because that's all he wrote, in a way. And so MMP, Michael Miller Pilates, as a brand, this image is the brand that represents Michael Miller Pilates. It also implicitly makes the point of the existence of the biodynamics of core new tension in the body. So it's a 1-2 punch when it comes to what is there to get that Michael Miller is teaching, that I am teaching. And what's to get are 2 things, and I focus more and more now on those 2 things are theories. They're theories. And theories are just meant to be an explanation of the way things are. I think in times to come, humanity being what it is and always looking for something new or what's better than or beyond, there's some people never want to change and never want to go beyond what they already know. But if that's the case, you're not really listening to this, are you? And so my number 3 title, thinking is a part of it, but not all of it, is that these 3 things of body, mind, and spirit as capabilities in the body. It's like I have a body, I have being, and I have the ability to think, I have mind. But I also have spirit, which is this connection to something other than mind. From old Joe in your health of body and mind to new Joe in return to life through contrology, where it's body, mind, and spirit. MMP attributes spirit to observing. And in spite of the mystery surrounding observing, attribute observing to the areas of the brain that feed information into thinking. And you're connected to your senses. You're listening to what you sense in the pursuit of performing your movement. So the point of number 3 is that the greatest thing about Pilates is because it cuts across the whole spectrum of intellect, meaning mind. When you know that something more than mind is necessary in the pursuit of the experience of Pilates, and that more than mind, that spirit in MMP, there's not more thinking about what spirit is. Spirit is the participation of observing. It's the participation and connection with, the coordination with your senses that exist beyond your thinking. And so thinking is a part of it, a big part of it, a huge part of it. And to the extent that you have intellectual capacity, it expands the depth and breadth of your ability to enjoy your pursuit of Pilates. But thinking isn't high ground. To me, thinking is a part of three things that Joe talked about. Coordinating. And I call those capacities. I think it's a very good word. Because you're coordinating the capacities you have within you, and the capacities that you have within you are your body, your thinking, and your ability to listen to your senses. Right? You're observing. Being, thinking, and observing. And all the other stuff that thinking wants to make of Pilates, or deem Pilates to be, that exists exclusively within a realm of intellectual determinism, ignoring the requirement that in Pilates you're after the experience, and thinking is important, but it's not everything. And as such, either as the student or the instructor or the teacher, your recognition of the necessity of your observing, participating in your thinking, and responding live in the moment, right, real time, to the movement that you're making, right? The being that you've got isn't still, the being is in moving. Maybe it should be moving, thinking, and observing. The being being the moving part of the Trinity. Non-local and superluminal. Observing. Connection to the universe, faster than light. When you dive in and you disappear into the reach of the idealization of your effort, when you fall out of that or have to surface from that, you know, a plane can be going high, 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 aspire, 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 and then it gets pulled back down to gravity. And you can dive into your effort like climbing up in a plane. You can dive into your effort like in an ocean, and you only dive so deep for so long because you can only do so much. And the idea is to make the best effort you can, as synthetic as you can, meaning as concise and as synthesized, as pure as possible, to get the most out of the effort. Because if I'm going to exercise, I want the most out of the effort I got to put into it, because I'm the laziest person you'll ever meet. Practice the mat. Do the mat as a routine. Have idealization of what you're aiming for in a performance, so that you can have your thinking consumed with the aspiration of the movement, necessarily connected to the listening of what's coming from what you're sensing in your movement. It's a feedback loop. And as an instructor, the student is in a pas de deux with their feedback loop. It's their moving, and the feedback that comes out of it is this loop. But as a Pilates instructor, you slide in between the pas de deux and help the student, the dancer, recognize what they're listening to where you can slide back out and they're responding to their own sensation in a knowing, thinking way. So 4 days until the tip, till the change. And it's predictable, it's observable, and you can plan on it. Those are elements of surviving. And Pilates is all about surviving. Everlasting youth to you and yours through contrology. It's an oft-used salutation written by Joe. Everlasting youth to you and yours through contrology. Okay. Facebook calls. Christy, when are you going to be a presenter? Do you need help? Do you need a piece of paper? Do you need promotion? Right? Do you understand the two theories well enough to try to explain them to other people? Life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Add 2 and 2. Evaluate points of view. Direct your thinking. Geist.